All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right. Well, I guess it's not as early now, right? Like it's 8 o'clock. I'm supposed to start at 7:30. I apologize for that. Before we get into the details there, I want you to remember that this show does not run on freedom fumes, folks. So if you're watching me on Rumble, please smash that green $ button during the show to drop a Rumble rant. It's kind of like tossing me a cold one. Helps keep the vibes high and the mics on. And if you want to go all in, go ahead, smash that subscribe button for just $5 a month. Your support helps me fight the good fight. All right. First and foremost, apologize for not being here at 7:30. Just had some delays this morning, and I was like, all right, well, let's just push this back to 8, and the show will go on. Second thing that I would like to tell you today, if you haven't already figured out by the topic title, this one may not be the most appropriate for your children. Just depends on you. It depends on, like, I'm not going to be saying anything salacious. I'm not going to be showing anything, gratuitous or lascivious, anything along that nature. There's nothing lewd. It just, the topic of the conversation may not be for your little ones. So that's up for you to decide. But I do want to give you that fair warning ahead of time. So today, we're going to kind of talk about porn. Yeah. Everybody's talking about it, right? Like, the way that people are talking about it, I think is misguided. I think that we are doing a disservice to the very people that we claim we want to help, whether it's men who are struggling with porn or whether it's families that maybe could have a better life if it weren't for dad watching all that porn, right? That's what we're saying. But I don't think we're actually addressing the issue correctly. So what made me talk about this? Well, one, it's all over my social media feed. It's a topic that comes around periodically. And so I've been meaning to talk about it. And the problem with talking about porn on this show is not the topic itself so much as it's a vast topic. There's so much that I have to say. Like I would love to have a dad on and just have a frank conversation back and forth for maybe like 2 hours. And I think we could cover a whole lot. So maybe you're a dad out there and you've got a good head on your shoulders and you're open to hearing some different approaches to how we address the issue of porn. So what got me here today is there's a video going around of Ali Stuckey. I don't know who she is, but she recently gave a speech at TPSUA titled Charlie Kirk's 5 Most Controversial Truths. Excuse me. Truth number 1 is feminism has failed women. Truth number 2, porn has weakened men. Truth number 3, merit always trumps DEI. Truth number 4, America is a Christian nation. And truth number 5, Jesus is the only way to heaven. Of course, TPUSA, Charlie Kirk, and most everybody in that circle are religious people. Now, I want to focus on truth number 2, porn has weakened men. And I think, and we're going to get into this, and you'll see why, but I think that title alone I think it's very interesting. Just contrast feminism has failed women, porn has weakened men. I want you to think about, like, there's a very subtle difference there. It's almost like feminism was supposed to do something for women and it didn't. And porn, it has damaged men. Right? And I don't necessarily disagree, but I think there's a whole lot more to it. So let's play that clip. We'll go over to our dad TV here. And let's see here. Make sure I don't have any. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Make sure we get this all right today. All right, so we're over here at Dad TV, and here's this first video clip. This is now the whole speech was like an hour and a half maybe, and I don't really need to go over the whole thing. I'm just going to go over this small segment which was going around and getting a lot of criticism. So here is Allie making her pitch about how porn has weakened men. So let's go.
Second one, are you ready? Are you ready? Porn has weakened men.
All right, so we get a lot of clapping, right? Like people are like, yeah, you're right. It's weakened men. Okay, we're gonna get into that. Don't worry.
And you know, Charlie was so good at talking about this and so good at talking so courageously and sternly and clearly to the young men. Here's what we know about porn and why it is so detrimental, not only to men, although it disproportionately affects men. Porn objectifies women and children. It commercializes sex, which is a gift from God for a married couple between one man and one woman, and it glorifies violence.
Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with everything there. I think there's some merit to what she has to say. Okay, but what we are talking about is what has the porn has weakened men. Is that the focus? If we're looking at it and saying there is a pornography problem, right now, pornography, and you might see it as a problem, you might not, right? Depends on you. A lot of it depends on whether or not you're a religious person or if you have some underlying religious values. If you don't have religious values, and I'm not condemning you necessarily, then there's a good chance that you don't necessarily see porn as a problem, like in and itself. Not to say that people can't be addicted to it or abuse it, but you might say, hey, like porn has its place. Whereas if you're more religious, you would say porn has zero place, and that's fine. I take no issue with that. But again, I think the direction that we're approaching, if you're looking at it from either perspective, if you're looking at it from the perspective of we have the more secular perspective, and you're saying, hey, the abuse of porn is a problem. Maybe some porn is a problem. And then you go and you try to, address that. Or if you're coming at it from a religious perspective and you're saying, hey, look, all porn is bad. I think regardless of which one fits you most, if you're in one of those two camps, I think we are still approaching this incorrectly. Okay? So I don't necessarily disagree with what she's saying. That's not the gist of my conversation today. That's not what I'm getting at. Okay? I'm talking about how do we approach this conversation? How do we set up men for success? That's what I'm getting at, regardless of which camp you fit in.
It creates addiction and shame. It destroys marriages. It ruins your perception of other people. It is the legal loophole for sex trafficking. It is evil in every way, and it will destroy your life. And this is what I would want to say to men, and I hope that you hear it from strong men in your life, that men, we need you. And we need your masculinity, and we need your strength, and we need your boldness, and we need your courage, and we need those things to be harnessed for good. We need you to be solid pastors. We need you to be strong leaders. We need your voice. We need you to bravely stand up for the most vulnerable, to stand up for women and children and for the unborn, to raise a respectful ruckus for the things that matter. We need really strong men, and porn makes you weak.
Okay. I don't necessarily disagree here, but I think the problem here is we're not addressing the root, I guess you could say, cause of either usage of porn, if you're in the religious camp, or the abuse of porn, if you're in a more secular camp that's more tolerant. Because on the surface, what she had to say sounds pretty good. Hey, we need you to do all these things. But underlying that is basically, we need you to be better because you got to do all these things. Like, it's almost like, I need you to be better so that this trash will, imagine a wife saying, I need you to be better, husband, so that the trash will be taken out, the grass will get cut. You're basically just like, I need you to be a better employee. It's basically what what she's saying. And again, I'm not disagreeing that all those things are value adds to our society. Where the distinction that I'm going to be talking about today is, how do we approach this? How do we get to a point where, if you're secular, you help men get away from, abusing porn, using it too much, maybe some of the the worst parts of porn, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're from a secular position, or if you're from a religious position, how do we get to, you're never going to stomp it out, but how do we get to really, really reducing it so it's not such a powerful hold on men and women too? We're talking about men because this is dad talk, but don't mistake me. I'm not excluding women here so much as I'm just focusing on men. Okay, how do we get to that? That's the gist of what I want to talk about. So I'm going to repeat that multiple times just so that anybody tunes in late, they understand where I'm going with this, and they don't make a mistake. So it's, again, I think she's correct in all those things. It would be great if men were, doing all of those things to the best of their ability. And I have a lot of criticism for men. Anybody that's watched the show, they know that I have been very critical of men and saying, like, look, if you have a child, raise your friggin' kid. Be a good father. If you had a bad father, be the father you wish you had, right? Those kind of things. So I'm not in disagreement with what that she's saying. I'm just disagreeing and saying, like, I don't think this is the way forward to tell men, hey, we've got a lot of duties for you to do, and you're too busy watching porn, and that's keeping you from doing all these duties, and we need you to do that. I don't think that's the right path. Okay, so let's continue listening, and then we're going to dive into this. All right.
Chivalry is not dead. Virtue is not extinct. And you, men, and your wife, and your future wife deserve better than porn. And what I heard Charlie say over and over again, take responsibility. Work hard. Find a Christian woman, a solid Christian woman who loves her Bible, who loves spending time in God's Word, who loves to pray, who loves to go to church. Find someone like that. Women, be someone like that. Get married if you can. Have babies and lead your people well, men, because we need you. That's the second lie.
Okay, so that was what she had to say about porn, at least in that clip that's been going around. Jeremy, by the way, over on X says levels are super low. You are quiet, and she is almost inaudible. So I tried to turn her up a little bit, and then hopefully my audio is a little bit louder. So let me know in the chat, guys, if the audio is a little bit better now. I can also increase it just a little bit here. In fact, let's just give it a little bit more gains, right? All right, so let me know if that fixes the problem. Okay, so that's the video, and then let's take a look at some of the responses to the posting of that video. So I believe it was Blaze TV posted that clip, and then it got a lot of attention. So let's go over to some comments here, some social media comments, and we are going to, let's see here. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do that. Give me a second. I added them. There's so many things to click on here sometimes, and sometimes I forget one or two, so I do apologize. But we've got it all right here, and we can get right to it. Okay, so there we go. All right. Let's see. I got my neutral music, okay, because I'm not clowning on people. I just want to keep it. All right, so here's some of the comments that people responded. You can see the blaze at the bottom. It says, men, we need you. We need your masculinity and your strength and your courage, and we need those things to be harnessed for good, okay? And so here's a comment. What we really need to combat feminism is more females on a stage telling everyone what to do. That'll fix it. Now, I'm telling you, I'm just showing you some of the responses. I don't necessarily agree with all the responses. In fact, many of them I actually disagreed with. Okay, so I am not a big fan of beating up on women in order to advance men. In fact, the nature of this show, this episode, or my series, my Dad Talk series is to build up men without beating up on women. I don't need to go and beat up on feminism. I just need to say, hey, men are good. They're awesome. And, occasionally give them a little bit of criticism, but at the same time, build them up instead. So let's see. Next one. Allie Beth Stuckey puts on this based trad wife facade while girl bossing around at events and her podcast lecturing men on stepping up while telling women that it's okay to be imperfect. She's spiritually no different than the shitlib HR lady who talks about toxic masculinity in the workplace. Just feminism with conservative talking points. Absolutely insufferable. Okay, so that was Bowtied Ranger, who does not like me, by the way. Men, we need you. This is by Pastor Mathis, whoever that is. Proceeds to talk instead of stepping down for men to lead. These boss girls suck up all the funds and oxygen that qualified men could be using to make a public stand. Okay? Let's see. The reason men stopped being masculine is because women stopped being feminine. It's interesting comment there. If you want to go back to the Garden of Eden, remember what Adam said when God was like, "Yo, you ate this fruit. You weren't supposed." He was like, "Man, is the woman that you gave me." Just saying, like, maybe blaming women isn't the answer either. Blaming one sex is a bit simplistic, but men didn't have a political movement against gender roles for the past 150 years. Women did. All right. Going on, she just can't help herself. She will find a way to preach to men. She's a feminist in conservative garb. Men counsel men, period. Men preach to men, period. Well, there's some truth there, but I think that's missing the mark still. Let's see. Max said, imagine how it would go over if a man went on stage at TPUSA and told all the women to stop arguing and to submit to their husbands and have sex with them even when they don't really feel like it. Okay, well, you're right. It would not go over. And I would argue that getting up and telling women to have sex with their husbands even when they don't feel like it, probably not the best advice. I'm just saying, like, yes, in a relationship, people do things at times that maybe they don't feel like it, right? They buck up. But I wouldn't say that's what we should lead with. Just pointing that out. Like, it's like you do things because you want to do them. And then on occasion you do them because, you know what, this is my responsibility. I got to do this. I'm not feeling it right now. But yeah, like that should be the exception. That you don't feel like it from time to time, and that's when the responsibility aspect kicks in. Not leading with this idea of like, hey, be responsible, do the responsible thing, you have a duty. I don't think that hits the mark either. Rollo Tomasi, not a big fan of him, but he says, funny how not a single trad femme has suggested that enthusiastically effing their husband more often would be the best way to combat porn. Now, I do think this is a bit of a problem. We're not going to talk about people's sexual lives, but I think that there is a problem to be addressed regarding enthusiastic sex from wives. But I don't think that is the best way to combat porn either, and I will talk about that here in just a moment. Next up, Bethany says, a lot of men, this is where we shift now. We shift the vibe. The vibe was, for a moment there, criticizing women. Now we're shifting that vibe. A lot of men watching this and getting defensive are telling on themselves porn, right? So now we're into this attitude, like, if you disagree with this message, you must be watching porn and you're just defensive. Now, in fairness, that's perhaps some men. But again, I think it's missing the mark. Let's see. The comments show that when you speak against porn, the golden calf, the men get angry. Be easy on them. They've bonded with it as they should have bonded with the wife. So again, missing the mark, because you're just assuming that the reason men are upset is because it's their golden calf. And perhaps in some sense that is true, and for some men it perhaps is true, right? But I think that still misses the mark. We're going to talk about it. I promise you, we're going to get there. The men are upset that Ali is saying we need men to be strong. Y'all, please get your derangement syndrome under control, please. You're acting like emotional women. All right. So let me ask you, Lizzie, if men are complaining and saying, yeah, I don't know why women are speaking to us men, it should be a man, and you don't understand what it's like and blah, blah, blah. Do you think that your comment, hey, you just got derangement syndrome, you're acting like you're acting like an emotional woman, that was supposed to get men to be like, oh, you know what? You're right. I'm acting like an emotional woman. I should listen to women more. I should be less offended. But you really thought that was actually going to work? You see my problem here, folks? Is I feel like we're just throwing out our comments with no regard to, will my comment actually motivate somebody to be different? This is a problem. Our society has a huge, massive problem with communication. And I will argue every day, all day, twice on Sunday, that communication, the lack thereof, is a larger problem than even porn. Because people just say things and then expect somebody else to receive it well, with no regard to, how did I say it? It's like, let me put it into a very crude context. Let's say that I'm arguing with my wife. All right, we're having a little bit of a dispute. And let's say that I feel like she's not being reasonable, right? This is a common argument from men. Like, man, I'll argue with my wife. If I'm sitting around a fire pit with a group of men, and we're kind of griping a little bit about an argument that we had with our wives one time, we're going to likely say something like, she wasn't being very logical, right? You know? And so, like, the problem that I have here is that, where was I going with that? Damn. I lost my comment. I lost that comment. If I can bring it back, but the point that I'm really trying to address here is that telling me that I'm an emotional woman is not the direction that's bugging me now. I hate when I'm in the middle of a thought and I just lose it. Just poof, gone. Anyway, all right, we'll just move on. Okay, now we're transitioning into some rational criticism, I think. So Gia says, have you noticed? Nobody ever lectures women on how to be better women. Now, that's not entirely true, but there is some truth there to be had. And I'm going to address this comment in specific a little bit later because I actually responded to her and I had a comment that I think is a very valuable comment. Man, it's still driving me crazy that I forgot my comment earlier. It happens. Tim Hicks, the Uncharted Father, he said, this is one of the 1,000 reasons why the church is a major problem for men. Oh, now we're talking. It's not talking about what's good for men. It's talking about what men need to do to help women. It's talking about men sacrificing themselves for the greater good, which in this case is women, and mentions nothing about what men want, need, or aspire to. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Men would be more religious if women stopped lecturing them on how to be better men. I agree. I think this is, now, I think it's not just women lecturing men. I think it's also men too. I don't think men need to be lectured to on how to be better men. I think men need to be inspired. I think we need to look at and say, what do men want? What do they aspire to? That's the conversation we need to have, and one we're going to have. And this one, I love this comment from Lauren Chen. She said, as Christian women, I believe the best way to combat porn is from the supply side, the women performing, not the demand side. Okay? I just don't think we can speak to what it's like to be a man and struggle with pornography. Yes, women watch porn too, but it's clearly not the same. So I think she's making a really good point here. And this is not to say that women cannot speak to men. This is just to say, if you're a woman, do you really understand why a man might utilize porn, whether you're secular or religious? Like, do you really understand, or do you just think you understand? Because I think a lot of people believe that they understand, but they actually don't. So those are some of the comments. As you can see, there was a mix of condemnation for women speaking, condemning men for opposing the clip, and then there's a few more rational positions. And then there was tons and tons of comments, and those are just some of the ones that I chose. Now, I will say this. I don't believe it's necessarily wrong for a woman to get up to a crowd and speak and say, hey, like, I don't necessarily have an issue with Allie saying what she said. I just think that if you want to deal with the issue of porn, we need to come at it from a radically different perspective. Let me just kind of buttress that. How long has porn been around? Since like what, the 70s? I mean, earlier than that, but I mean, really been around. Like you had your triple X theaters where you could literally just walk into it, and see a porno. Like now it's a little bit more like you got to watch it from your phone or your tablet or something like that. But once upon a time, it was a little bit more public, and you could watch it. So we'll just kind of look at say the 70s. Has anything that they've tried reduced porn consumption? The answer is no. So whatever it is, whatever approach that is being taken is not working. So the real question is why? Why is it not working? Why is porn getting more and more prevalent? Well, I think that men inherently need and were designed for three things: adventure, battle, and beauty. I've talked about this before. Okay? Society does not provide it. And I think one result of that, just one, is heavy use of porn. And I think as we go along in society and as men are getting further and further away from this adventure, battle, and beauty, I think we are seeing the effects in various areas. Now, this topic could be expansive. Just the topic of adventure, battle, beauty, that could be expansive. I'm reading this book slowly. For me, reading a book might take months because, like, I'll read a chapter, then I'll set it down, I'll get really busy, then I'll come back to it, and I'll have maybe lost some of the information, so I'll go back, read maybe 2 chapters, and so it takes me a while. But I'm reading this book. It's called The Feminization of American Culture by Ann Douglas. Okay, and what's interesting is this was written in, when was this written? Let me take a look here. Let me see when it was. It was written. It was written 70s, in the 70s. Okay, I love going back to older material, especially before things were a hot topic, because I feel like you get a more genuine idea of a certain topic. That's not to say that all things that are published necessarily while a topic is hot are not necessarily any good. That's just to say that I think there's a bigger fight for various sides to have their viewpoint seen as the correct one. And so I think that you get a little bit more dramatic telling of that position, and they skimp a little bit on the facts. So I like to go back to older stuff. This was written when, the idea of feminizing the American culture wasn't really this hot button topic. It is today, okay? And so Ann Douglas in this book, she discusses how the Industrial Revolution, she starts out by talking about the Industrial Revolution drastically modifying society by displacing men from their traditional roles. Now, you might not know this, or maybe you do, but prior to the Industrial Revolution, men occupied a lot of roles. So like teachers were generally men, okay? Men were leaders in various areas, all over the place, okay? Men, you virtually never saw a woman pastor, whereas you see them all the time today, okay? And this is not me saying like, oh, we need to go back to the patriarchy. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm not saying that the 1920s were the ideal time. What I'm saying is there were elements of the 1920s that I think more accurately fit the two sexes, even if they still needed to be, they still needed some fine tuning. Okay. We also, I think, then going forward, we see some disruption from many policies enacted in the 1960s. I've talked about this a lot, particularly when it comes to various demographics. And I say, look, some of the policies that we've seen, I think they have destroyed, I think the policies of the 1960s have destroyed the family. I think it's particularly pronounced in the black family, right? Whereas in the 40s and the 50s, we can see that the families were largely intact and incomes were on the rise. But then after the 60s, we see this destruction of it. But I also think that we start seeing the introduction of feminism, and we start seeing the sharp drop, maybe not a sharp drop, but a drop in masculinity, at least being respected in the 60s. Then you get to the 80s and the 90s, right? Think about the sitcoms that we used to watching family men. They're portrayed as well-intentioned goofs rather than desirable leaders, right? Like think of Tim the Toolman Taylor. Right? He always got something wrong, something major wrong with the family. Right? And it was funny. We laughed at it. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have. I'm just saying that's what the focus was. And then we get to today, and we had this fight. You know, we've got this notion of toxic masculinity. And what is a woman? Is a woman, you know, defined by all these things that society and civilizations have understood a woman to be for millennia? Or is it now just whatever the heck you think of, which usually ends up being just some overpronounced, dramatic display of what, you know, this exaggeration of women? Are you seeing the trajectory here? You know, I think there's sufficient evidence to say that our society has feminized men, not cultured men, not tempered their masculinity so that it's not out of control. Because I believe that, yes, you can have an out of control masculinity, right? So I think that society has feminized men. They don't like the result. And now many of them are going on to attempt to browbeat men back into what they believe is their proper social role. And it's failing. In an episode titled The Male Loneliness Epidemic, YouTuber Shoe on Head made this very astute point. Let's go back to Dad TV here, and we're going to check out this astute point that I think that she made. Boom. Let's go here. Let's see.
A lot of men simply feel like they don't have a purpose anymore. Whether a job or a career that's fulfilling and pays well, or a woman or family to protect and take care of and provide for, men are lacking purpose. And a man will crawl through broken glass for a purpose.
Whoa. That's an interesting point. Have you heard any of the churches that are decrying porn, or anybody for that matter? I'm picking on churches a little bit, and don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-church. In fact, I've been exploring the Reformed Church myself. But have you heard the religious crowd really come out and say, you know what the real problem is? Men don't have a purpose. That's what it is. No, they're coming out and they're saying, men, we need you to be better fathers, better husbands, better this, better that, right? We need you to stop watching porn so that you can do these things in society. This is my point earlier. I was like, it's telling men what they need to do, not asking, hey, as that Uncharted father said, what do men want? What do you aspire to? What motivates you? What are you lacking, good sir? Right? But Shu here has kind of made that point. Let's continue.
But you know who does make them feel like they have a purpose? No, not him.
I say that life as a man is exceptionally difficult. I say the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing about being a man is you're born without value. Society doesn't care about you.
The absolute audacity to act shocked that Andrew Tate is scooping these guys up after a decade of lol male tears is insane. Andrew Tate isn't the solution to men's problems, but he is talking to them.
Oh, that's interesting. He's talking to them. He's addressing how they feel. See, I think that's the difference between the Andrew Tates of the world and, say, the Ali Stookies of the world. Okay? I think the Andrew Tates are speaking to how men feel. And then I think the Ali Stookies are speaking to what do we want out of men. Okay? And I'm not saying that the Ali Stookies are necessarily wrong in all the things that they're saying. Again, this is about what is the approach.
The fact is, you did not care about them for years. And even now, you just want to recruit them, not help them. And that's why you will fail.
Mm. You know that meme that's like difficult pills to swallow or whatever? I think that's where we are. This is a huge horse pill that people that are anti-porn, they need to swallow. They need to recognize that they, exactly as Shu said, they are trying to recruit men to do things they want them to do. They are not inspiring men. Right? Ask yourself why so few men would be willing to do what Daniel Penny did, where he grabbed the guy on the subway, Jordan Neely, and put him in a chokehold to protect the other passengers. Ended up getting arrested, put on trial, going through this trial, people demonized Daniel Penny. And a lot of men, I watched it all over social media. A lot of men came out and they were like, I wouldn't do that because why would I risk my family, myself, for somebody else's safety? Right? But isn't that what conservatives tell us that men are designed to do? We're bigger, we're stronger. I weigh 120 pounds, I'm 5'3". I promise you, nobody is scared of me. My son is steadily growing, he's 6 years old, and he's almost done being afraid of me. I mean, he's not really afraid of me, but you get my point. I'm kind of making a slight joke here, right? Like nobody's afraid of me. However, despite that fact, I can still physically overpower most women that I know, despite the fact that I'm 5'3" and 120 pounds, because conservatives have that point right. They are correct when they say we are designed to be physical, to take risk, to fight, to go on adventures, have battles. That's what we were designed to do. Okay? Yet you have a lot of men out there that would look at the Daniel Penny situation and they would say, no, I wouldn't do that. A lot of them, and I took issue with this, a lot of them came out and said, I wouldn't do that because I don't want the government taking me through the ringer like that. You wouldn't protect somebody else because you're afraid of the government? That's a poor answer. That's not a masculine answer. Now, if you said, hey, I wouldn't do that because I don't have the skills to properly, take someone down and, hopefully try not to kill them, I would either harm them or just get myself, like, that's fair. I'm not opposed to a rational decision and saying, making a rational decision based on the situation and saying, is this a situation for which interjecting myself in this way will improve the situation, right? It may be that the best opportunity or best option for you as a man is to say, hey, you know what? This is not a fight I should be taking on. I'm just simply not equipped with it. But by golly, I'm going to go find another man, or maybe I'll find 3 men and we'll do it together. I can't do it by myself, but I'll go get 3 men and all 4 of us will go and take on this challenge, right? That's not what I heard. I heard men saying, no, I'm not going to get involved. I want to go home to my family. But you know what I hear when I hear that? I hear men saying, DL, if your wife and your child are out in public and they're in danger, I'm not going to help them. That's not the world I want. And I don't think that's the world that we were designed to live in. I think we were designed to live in a world where another man can live with some level of confidence that other men will step up and protect his family when he happens to not be present. That's the world I want to live in. That's the world I think we were designed to be in, right? We are physically stronger. We're faster. We have more muscle, even if we're scrawny little, shrimps like myself. Ask yourself another question. Why do so many men struggle with porn? Is it just because they they can't help it? Is it the retarded ass reason that some people give? They're like, oh, it's just the Jews. The Jews control all this porn, and they're just trying to get you to put your wanker in your hand, and they're controlling you. That's a garbage answer, too. Have a little bit, number one, take some responsibility, right? But it goes in all these directions. Take responsibility for the situations that you are in. Whether it's, you're on a subway and somebody's threatening some people, take some responsibility. Or whether you're at home, the wife's away, and you're just feeling the urge, take some responsibility. But ask yourself, why are those things the way they are? Well, I think the answer to both of them is the same. Men lack purpose, right? They lack it in their family and in their society. And I think it's very evident. I see all the time men talking about sexless marriages. It's horrible. It's weird. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine the other day, and I was just like, yeah, man. I was like, I noticed something interesting that when it's been a little too long, And I'm not going to tell you how long too long is, but it's certainly not what I see on the internet, like months or years. Not at all. And so, but I'm like, and I noticed that when it's been a little too long, I get a little bit bitchy. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, there's a reason for that. He said, because initially when you first get married, you're getting it on like rabbits because it's fun. It's exhilarating. There's this thrill to it, and maybe that's when you're trying all these new cool things or whatever. Right. And then eventually, as a couple grows together, it becomes more about intimacy and connectedness, right? And he's like, that's what you're feeling. You're feeling like, hey, it's the equivalent of a woman saying, hey, you know what? It's been a while. We haven't been out on a date, or we haven't snuggled up on the couch together, or we haven't went out to a movie, and just enjoyed it, whether it's a rom-com or an action film, right? It's the equivalent of women saying that. Why? Because it's about this connectedness. That we're like, hey, you know what? There's been a lot going on in the world. I'd like to get connected to my better half, or my other half, if you will, right? I think that's what's going on. So in the family, there's this connectedness. In society, there's this need, there's this inherent desire for, adventure and battle and beauty. And I don't think it goes away. It might diminish a little bit. Obviously, if you're 18, you're much more willing to go on an adventure and do battle than if you're like, 60. By the time I'm 60, I'm not trying to go and rescue people. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to go to war at the age of 60, and fight for somebody else's freedom whom I maybe never have met. But I might be willing to do that when I'm 18, 19, or 20. Do you see my point here? But it's still there. And at 60, I'm not there yet. I'm working it. But at 60, I think that the proper relationship to have with my wife is to still want to try to impress her, right? It's still want to get the beauty, to battle something, even if that something is only carrying in the groceries. Hopefully, I'll be able to do a whole lot more by the time I'm 60, right? Now, let me go back to Gia's comment. And let me see if I can't pull that up here real quick, because I think her comment was very interesting here. So, oops, let me go back to it here. Let's go back this way. There we go. All right, so here's this comment. She said, "Have you noticed nobody ever lectures women on how to be better on how to be better women?" And then in response to that, I said, "Yep, years ago I learned this when I was told to compare Mother's Day versus Father's Day at churches." All right, I'm going to be stepping on some toes here, folks. So I started observing, and I realized that on Mother's Day, moms are so great and they're so wonderful. Here's a rose. Take a rose to your mother, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thank your mom for all the hard work she's done, yada, yada. Then on Father's Day, it was, men, you need to be better fathers. You need to be better husbands. You need to be better sons. You need to be better men in society. Better this, better that, better. Right? It was like just beating up on them. And I was like, wait a minute. Why are we taking Father's Day, a day that's supposed to celebrate fathers, to tell them the same thing we tell them the other 364 days? We don't do that for women, right? Now, is it true that nobody ever lectures women on how to be better? That's not really true. That you can find plenty of the red-pilled bros. They get on there and they're like, women, you just need to have more sex with your husbands, right? And there's some truth there. And they might say, women, stop talking down to men. Women, stop doing this. Stop. So there is some lecturing happening. I don't believe that's any, in general, what I've seen is not any more valuable. It's equally as useless as the lecturing I see on men. Okay? But I think that we have plenty of evidence to say that there's a lot of feminization of men going on here. We are, and beating up on men, right? We don't really respect men. And when we ask things of them, we want them to take on the qualities and the traits of women rather than redirecting their masculinity into a good place where it's a value add to society. I love the Jordan Peterson. There's a clip of Jordan Peterson, and he said something to the effect of, men should not try to be peaceful and nice. Men should be monsters. And then control it, tame it. And here's the point that he was getting at. With my family, I work very hard to be honest and open and loving and caring. I don't storm around the house. I don't kick the dog. I don't yell at my wife. I don't, scream at my kid and tell him, be a man. I mean, sometimes I will say like, hey, this is what men do, but in a certain context. I don't just bark it out like every time he does something, right? Like if he grabs, some bright colors and wants to make something pink on a cart, that he's coloring, I don't go, that's a girl color. Don't you dare use that. You grab a brown or a green crown, or like, I don't do that. Okay. I try to be very respectful in the family. And so my family, my son and my wife, who has known me for 12 years, 13 years, neither of them have seen the worst part of me. And hopefully they never do. But I will tell you that if somebody were to break in at 2 a.m. in the morning, they're going to see a DL that they didn't know existed. Okay? That's what I think that Jordan Peterson meant. My purpose in this family is to lead the family. Lead. Not bark orders, not make demands, to lead. I take responsibility for the vibe in my house. It may sound weird. Like, if my wife comes home one day and she's had a rough day and she's in a particularly bad mood because things just are not going her way, like, I don't just be like, hey, you need to knock it off. I mean, sometimes I might be a little bit more brash than I intend to be, but I take responsibility and I say, this is a vibe that I want to lead her to a better place. Now, you can't lead somebody by just dictating orders. That's not how this works. Okay? I take responsibility for that. If my son's in a bad mood because he's got a headache or just because, he's like 6 and that's what happens, it's my job to try to lead him out of that, or at least lead him to, managing that until such time that he's in a better mood. So, for instance, if he gets very angry about something, he is permitted to be angry. We don't get mad at him for being angry. Now, there are our lines. You can't throw your toys. You can't yell at people and say mean things to them, right? But if you want to go into your bedroom and just scream, okay, that's fine. Like, anger is a reasonable emotion to have. We have it, and we have to express it in some way. But my goal is not to say you can't be angry because you're 6 and I'm 47, and therefore everything I say is always correct. What I say is you can be angry, and there is a good way to be angry and a bad way to be angry. And I try to demonstrate that myself. That is my role in the family. That is my purpose. My purpose in society, I believe, part of it is this podcast where I discuss these things and I present ideas that I think will make a better world. It's also standing up for those who are vulnerable, those who maybe need a little assistance. So, for instance, and I'm not boasting, I'm just saying this is part of my purpose and this is what I do. Once upon a time, my wife and I went to a grocery store, and I saw a woman trying to change her car tire. Now, I didn't look and say, oh my gosh, there's a woman, she cannot do auto mechanics. I therefore am man, I must go help her. I just looked and I said, there seems to be a woman that's struggling to do something. I mean, it looked like she was having a tough time. So I just walked over and I said, ma'am, would you like some help? And she said, oh my, yes, please. I've never done this before. Now, we can argue whether or not a woman should be able to. I don't care about that. So I helped her. My wife went into the store and I caught up with her a few minutes later, right? That's my role in society, to kind of be observant and look around and see, where can I help other people with whatever skills that I have? Now, maybe you're not auto mechanic related. You don't have auto mechanic skills. I'm not going to beat you up on that. I mean, around the fire pit, I'll probably give you a little hard time because that's what men do. But I'm not going to beat you up over it, right? You have some other skill. Use that skill. Maybe you're good at communicating. Maybe you're good at technology, and maybe you can help out people. Let me say this. Since we're talking about porn, and not every guy is a mechanic, and there are a lot of men out there who are very good at technology. Perhaps one of the answers is for men who are good at technology is to start a class on how parents can use technology to their advantage to help monitor their kids, what their kids are watching on TV or YouTube, Netflix, and wherever else. There are tools out there. Just kind of an aside. And to my point, really, is that we all have different skills. Those skills, I believe, the purpose that we have in society is to utilize those skills to make a better society. And that means helping out our neighbors. And we're all going to have different skills. Some of you will be auto mechanics, and you're going to be able to stop by and help the woman on the side of the road that's got a broke down car. Some of you will be able to help some family, navigate the intricacies of technology so that it works for them and is to the betterment of their family, and so on and so forth. Okay? So I think that the message in Father's Day and Mother's Day, I think it's been distorted. I remember a book called Why Men Hate Going to Church. Basically, it was because it's been feminized, right? And again, we're not beating up on feminists. I'm not beating up on women. What I'm saying is we've taken something that has a role in society and we're trying to force it upon another entity in a way that disrupts its own role. We're basically trying to promote this femininity at the expense of masculinity. We should be promoting both of them in a way that improves our society. So again, it's not to flip the tables and browbeat women or femininity. I'm not saying if men were in their proper, and I don't want to make this point. I'm not saying that if men were in their proper social role, where society respected them, their families respected them, that all of a sudden magically porn would go away. I'm not saying that. I mean, after all, prostitution is the world's oldest profession, and the sexual drive is extremely powerful. And I believe, let's see in the comments here, where did it go here? Keith points out, he says, porn is thousands of years old. Right? Sexuality, the enticement of sex from men is thousands of years old. So I'm not saying it's going to all of a sudden go away, but I do think that we have a bit of a problem, not only with sexuality, but also in how we're trying to address it. I am saying that instead of beating up on men and telling them how they need to be better this, better that, so they can do all these things. Have you not seen us? We have a lot going on. We're busy. I got to take out the trash. I've got to, cut the grass. I've got to go to work. I've got to, listen to my wife. I've got to listen to my kid. I got to help him do homework. I've got responsibilities left and right. And I'm not complaining. I signed up for it. It's not a complaint. I love helping my family, usually. There's the days where I'm like, come on, guys, leave me alone. But, we got to be honest. But I don't, and there's not a problem that we have those responsibilities. But the message seems to be, we need more responsibility out of you, as opposed to, what do you need, men? What are you missing in your life? Well, what I'm saying is that men need adventure. They need battle. They need beauty, right? This is why we're drawn to all these films. From Perseus to Rocky. What is the theme? Did I say that, or I probably said it wrong? It's go on adventure. Have a battle, and win the hearts and minds of those around you. And with any luck, a beautiful lady. Or in these days, perhaps a man. Right? Fine, it's there, whatever. This is why I oppose banning porn. And I think it complements my libertarian views. Banning does not give purpose. It's just more browbeating. That's all it is. Saying, hey, you can't have this because it's bad for you. But it doesn't address, hey, why are you drawn to it in the first place? What is it that's causing you, start with the extremes. What's causing you to have a porn addiction? Is anybody asking that? Or are they just telling men, hey, we need you to do things. You can't do them because you're busy with your pecker in your hand. No, we got to ask them, what is it that you're missing? Well, I'm telling you right now, adventure, battle, beauty. Somewhere there's something that's missing. Furthermore, I think bands drive it underground. Then you have darker sights, you have more shame. I think you make the problem even much worse. And we've seen that with other bands. Prohibition. Now let's go back to fiction here real quick. In the scene, in the movie Starship Troopers, this is a weird movie to be quoting about porn, right? Like, what the heck? And in fact, it has a nudity scene in it, a couple of them actually. But the troops had just won a battle, okay? And their commanding officer, he comes out and he says, I expect the best, I give the best. And he provides troops things to celebrate their victory. And you see like these, they open up a box and there's like footballs and there's musical equipment. And then they have all these drinks and they're partying and they're celebrating, right? And this appeals to men. I mean, I want you to think about, imagine a troop that goes to battle. They come back. What do they want to do? Now, if they've won and there weren't too many casualties, they're going to want to celebrate. And even while they're celebrating, they may, honor some of the fallen, right? Because when we go to battle and we win, we want to celebrate. We want to feel good about ourselves, right? And I think this appeals to men. Maybe not necessarily going to war. I'm not suggesting that we want to go to war. I'm just saying the idea of battle. What is that battle? Maybe the battle is something simple, like helping out people in the community in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. And you walk away and you're beaming and you're like, I helped that woman change her car tire. Or I helped this family, wrangle in the technology so that it works better for their family and improves their family. Lecturing men, it fails because it's only telling men just to be better, just to man up. It's basically telling a starving man, go on a diet. It doesn't get to the root cause. And for the red-pilled men out there, just having more sex isn't it either, right? Studies show that relationships high in emotional connection have dramatically less porn use and cheating. Both of them. It's not a coincidence. Men need quest to redirect their hearts and therefore their actions. I got another clip. It's my last clip. And I love this clip. I swear I cannot play it enough. I've played it before on this show, and this, I think, just really, really drives home the point. So I want you to take a listen. And think of it in terms of everyday life, like she talks about. She talks about it in everyday life, but I want you to think of adventure, battle, beauty in everyday life. We're not really going out and slaying a dragon, right? That may be what we imagine. That may be the movies that we love watching. We like watching the underdog like Rocky rise up, beat everybody and then get the girl, have a son, go through trial and tribulation and come out on top. We love that because that is the prescription here. Adventure, battle, beauty. You have an adventure, you go on a battle, you get rewarded. So let's play this clip here real quick. Where did it go? Oh, how about that?
Tip for the ladies, men love quests. No, I know, not all men, but most men, okay? And all the men I want in my life, they like quests. Most men hate puzzles, but they love quests. Most men don't want you to be coy and confusing and elusive. They want you to have very clear quests that you tell them, this is exactly what I want you to do this, and I will be happy when you do it. My friend was telling me that her boyfriend offered to scrape off her car the other day. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. She's like, yeah, I told him not to, but I thought it was nice he offered. And I was like, oh, you told him not to? She's like, yeah, I didn't want to be difficult and inconvenience him. And I'm like, but didn't he happily offer to do it? And she's like, yeah, but I told him I didn't want him to. I'm like, oh, you didn't want him to? Like, you wanted to do it yourself? And she's like, no, I would have loved if he did it for me, but I didn't want to be difficult. And I'm like, honey, you have to remember, men love quests. If you don't want him to do something because you want to do it yourself, that's totally fine. But do not squash yourself down and deny yourself for no reason. Instead, let them do the quest for you and then be super appreciative and kind and happy about it. Nothing makes a man happier than completing a quest for you and you being happy and appreciative about it. So when he offers to scrape your car off, say, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. And then when he comes in, tell him, thank you. That just made my day so much brighter. Maybe make him a warm cup of coffee so that it's ready right when he comes in. It's like a video game, okay? He did his quest and then you gave him a resource in return. He leveled up in the game. He's winning now. You gave him the gift of winning. When a man loves you, nothing will make him happier than knowing he made you a little happier via a quest. I'll be like, ooh, ice cream sounds so good right now. My husband will be like, I can go get you some. I'm like, no, you don't have to do that right now. He's like, are you sure? I'm happy to. My first instinct is, no, I don't want to inconvenience him. But if I want that ice cream and it will truly make me happy to get that ice cream, I should let him go on that quest. It will not inconvenience him. It makes him feel like he's winning the game. Don't be a jerk. Don't make people do things for no reason. Be appreciative and happy when somebody puts that effort in for you. But honey, they love a good quest. Why do you think there's so many memes of boyfriends and husbands filling a girl's water cup? I'll tell you why. It's a quick, easy quest. If the quest involves something that makes him feel kind of manly and powerful, that's a double points quest. My husband just put together a little vanity for me, and I came upstairs and I just started jumping up and down. And I was like, oh my God, it looks so good. He's just like beaming, like, I did it. Look how happy I made her. Related pro tip, don't say sorry, say thank you. Sorry I'm so annoying. Thank you for listening to me. Sorry I'm running late. Thank you for waiting for me. Sorry I'm crying. Thank you for creating this safe space for me to cry.
All right. What men need, the answer to porn, I think, is to give them purpose. Purpose first, then deal with the porn. I think right now what we have is the opposite. We have the cart before the horse. We're trying to deal with the porn, and yet men have no purpose, or they're not given a purpose. They're told a purpose, but they're not really given one. And we don't believe that it's a valuable purpose because we've seen how this plays out way too often. You go do a thing and you don't get any thanks. Or you do a thing, you do a few things, and the one thing you don't do, that's what everybody focuses on. Oh, why did you do? You know, imagine a husband and a wife where the husband does all these things for his wife, small things. Any one of them by themselves isn't really all that big. But then he forgets to do something. And the wife, who previously did not show any appreciation for all the small things that he did, spends about a bunch of time talking about the one thing he didn't do. Why do all the small things? There was no reward for it at the end. And it's not that men have to have a reward for every single thing. It's not, in fact, it's not even about the reward. The reward is only a sign of the appreciation. A sign that says, this was a purpose that you had, that you fulfilled. You had value. You provided value to someone, or maybe several someones. That's what we're missing in society. Now, again, it's not necessary to say that we start doing that and all of a sudden, man, porn sales drop, right? Porn usage drops. I think there's still a conversation to be had. I just think that we have the cart before the horse. We need to switch it up, and we need to say, let's start inspiring men. Women, inspire your husband. And after you inspire him, when he does something, just show appreciation. Show gratitude. You don't have to fawn all over it. It's not like a man takes out the trash and the woman gushes and she's like, my hero took out the trash. Like, no. Just a simple thanks. And it doesn't even have to be all the time, right? If I take out the trash 10 times and 3 times my wife says thank you, I can fill in the blanks on the other 7, right? If she says nothing, right? Because I get it. We understand. We recognize that we're not going to be praised for every little thing that we do, and many of them are responsibilities. My wife and I, we will actually thank each other for doing things that we're supposed to do. If my wife calls up and she says, hey, can you pick up our son from school? I'm tied up right now. And I go, yeah, sure. Like, it's my job as a dad to go pick up my son when he needs to be picked up, right? It's my wife's job as his mom to pick up my son. And sometimes we gotta help each other out. And then later she'll be like, hey, thanks for doing that for me. And some people will go, why did she thank you? That's your job to pick up your kid if you need to. Yes, but I helped her out in a moment of need, a simple need, right? And just the appreciation to say, hey, you stepped in when I needed it. I'm glad that you were there. I'm glad that I can count on you, right? That's what is missing. Yes, there are some marriages where maybe sexy time needs to be upped a little bit, and I think the enthusiastic sex is absolutely a part of it. You know, I've seen some guys out there, they're like, well, she could just lay there for 5 minutes. And I'm like, that sounds kind of gross. Like, they lay there for 5 minutes. Like, that's That doesn't say purpose. That doesn't get the stimulation going like watching a porn where you're watching the dude spin the girl around, do all this weird stuff, and then she's like, this is so awesome. Like, we're literally, like, think about it. If you've ever watched a porn, don't lie, man, don't lie. Most of you have watched a porn. We all have seen porn. When was the last time you watched a porn and then you've been like, I am really drawn to the one where the woman really just didn't like it? Like, virtually never, unless, I mean, I'm sure there's some kink out there, whatever. But the majority of porn is watching a man do something, engage in the activity with enthusiastic partner. So yes, enthusiastic sex is a role, but really what it's about being connected. Perhaps there are some relationships where the sex isn't happening. You know, maybe it's once a month and that works for the couple. That's fine. Other couples, maybe it's once a week, twice a week, whatever. I don't know. You know, I'm not going to sit here and try to put a number on it. I don't think the quantification is the point. I think the point is, what is the relationship like? When you have sexy time, does it feel like winning? Does it feel enthusiastic? And I don't mean like super enthusiastic. Like, it doesn't have to be like crazy over the top. Just, yeah, I was there, you were there, we both wanted to be there. That's the enthusiasm we need, right? And then in everyday life, just, yeah, it feels good to know that you value my presence. You value even the small things. Even the small things. Hey, thanks for getting me a glass of water. My wife tells me that. I'll tell her that. Like, hey, thanks for making dinner. If she makes dinner, I usually make dinner, but sometimes she'll make it. I'm like, hey, thanks for making dinner. Right? Again, not all the time, right? Because if you do it enough and you're not criticizing over the top, then the times where there's no thank you, it's a fill in the blank. That's what that ends up being. Same thing for society. We should thank men when they do stuff, even if it's something we expect them to do. And you thank them on a semi-regular basis for doing those things, just mostly as a confirmation that you recognize their value. That's really what it's about. Once you do that, then and then only, I think, can you talk about the porn issue. But I'm willing to bet that if that were to start happening, that we would see a bit of a reduction, a noticeable reduction in porn consumption. Those two things, family and society, right? I think you'll start seeing a reduction in porn usage. Now, if the religious folk want to go further than that, great. Get to a baseline that first includes letting men know they are valued. That means no more Father's Day sermons telling them that they need to be better men when they just heard the Mother's Day sermon talking about how great the mother is. If the mother is great on Mother's Day, the father damn well better be great on Father's Day. Or, I've been in some churches where they kind of ignore those days. That's fine too, right? Treat them equal because men are watching. Recognize their masculinity has value. If it's a little bit out of control, then redirect it. Don't squash it, redirect it. This was a problem that I had in the Libertarian Party when we had this, when there was this fight for control a while back. I said, you're getting a lot of young people in, and the old guard, what they're not doing is they are not redirecting that energy. They're trying to squash it. That's what we're doing in society, and we see it everywhere. And in the Libertarian Party, it was mostly young men that were coming in with all this fire and energy, and a lot of the people that were squashing it were some of the older men, because I think we've become feminized, right? And again, I'm not saying femininity is bad. I'm saying that there is a proper place for femininity as there is for masculinity. And just as femininity can be directed to a wrongful place, so can masculinity. And the Andrew Tates of the world, they're going to redirect that masculinity to a negative place. But they are redirecting it. They are saying your masculinity is not a bad thing. And then they're directing it to fancy cars and sleeping with lots of women and getting paid in cash, dollar bill, whatever, right? That's the wrong direction. But they're at least hearing him and saying, yep, your masculinity is good. Let's take it somewhere. And the rest of society is saying, can't you just sit down, be quiet, read a book, do what you're supposed to do, take out the trash and stop watching porn? It's no wonder people are listening to Andrew Tate. It's no wonder there are more people flocking to him than there are the church or any other institution that claims to want to improve men. If you want men to flock to you, if you want men to hear you, hear them first. All right, folks, that's it. Not a lot of comments in here. I'll just address one or two. Wait until men have AI girlfriends who give them all the attention they need, right? And I think that's just going to make the problem even worse. You get more of what you reward, sometimes less of what you punish, but rewards are more effective. Absolutely true. Folks, that was my episode for today. I hope you found it informative, inspiring, and whether you're watching live now or you're watching later, please drop a comment in. Let me know what you're thinking. Did I miss anything? Did I need to offer a correction? Perhaps you just want to dole me out a little bit of praise. You know, you want to say, DL, I really appreciate you. What a great quest you went on telling us about porn. Don't say it like that. That sounds a little bit weird. But whatever you have to say, I'm all ears. And with that, folks, I'm going to be out. I will see you back Monday. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, because, you know, every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.